The test that backfired completely. I discovered my wife's plan to fake her own death through a text message she sent to the wrong person. Instead of sending it to her sister, she sent it to me at 11:47 p.m. while I was working late at the office. Everything set for Thursday. The fake accident scene, the hospital actress we hired, even the grief counselor to see how broken he gets. This is either going to prove he really loves me, or it'll be the most expensive way to discover I married a sociopath. My hands went numb as I read it 3 times. Fake accident scene, hospital actress. My wife of 7 years was planning to fake her own death to test how much I loved her. If you're into honest stories about relationships, trust, and betrayal, hit that follow button. You won't want to miss the next one. This wasn't just the relationship test I'd overheard her planning with her friends last month, the fake pregnancy scare they'd talked her out of. This was something infinitely more twisted and cruel. They'd escalated to psychological torture. I immediately called the number the text was meant for, her sister Amanda. She answered on the first ring, clearly expecting Jessica's call. "Did you get the final payment to the actress?" Amanda asked without preamble. "Amanda, this is Marcus." Silence, then panic in her voice. "Oh God, oh no, Jessica's going to kill me. Amanda, what the hell is going on? I can't." She made me promise. "Your sister is planning to fake her death to test me. I need to know everything right now or I'm calling the police." What Amanda told me over the next 20 minutes was so disturbing that I had to pull over on my drive home. This wasn't just about testing my love. This was about Jessica's obsession with being the center of attention, her jealousy over her friends' dramatic relationship stories, and her twisted need to create crisis to feel important. "She's been planning this for 2 months," Amanda confessed, "ever since her friend Sarah got that huge engagement ring after her boyfriend thought she'd been in a car accident. Jessica became obsessed with the idea that men only show their true feelings during life or death situations. So she decided to create a life or death situation. She hired an actress to play a nurse who would call you and say she'd been in an accident. Then she was going to hide in a hotel for 3 days while you grieved, just to see how devastated you'd be. The plan was psychotic in its detail. Jessica had researched local hospitals, found an actress through Craigslist, even prepared fake medical records to make the story believable. She was going to let me believe she was dead for 3 full days. "Amanda, this isn't a relationship test. This is emotional abuse. I know, I tried to talk her out of it, but she said you'd been distant lately and she needed to know if you still really loved her. She's convinced that if you don't fall apart completely, it means you never cared." Distant. I had been working overtime for months to save for the anniversary trip to Europe she'd been begging for. The same trip she was now willing to destroy with this insane scheme. When is this supposed to happen? Thursday afternoon. She's planning to stage the fake accident on her drive home from work. That gave me 2 days to plan my response. 2 days to decide whether to save my wife from herself or let her learn exactly what kind of man she'd married. I chose option 3, turn her test into a lesson she'd never forget. Wednesday night, I did something Jessica would never expect. I prepared my own surprise. While she slept beside me, still believing her plan was secret, I made arrangements that would expose exactly how twisted her test really was. I called my lawyer, my boss, and every member of both our families. I told them the truth about Jessica's plan and invited them to witness its spectacular failure. Then I hired a private investigator to document everything. Thursday arrived with Jessica acting unusually nervous. She was overcautious about breakfast, kept checking her phone, and even kissed me goodbye with unusual intensity. "I love you," she said, looking into my eyes with what I now recognized as guilt and anticipation. "Love you too," I replied, already knowing it would be the last time I'd say those words to her as my wife. At 2:15 p.m., my phone rang. An unknown number with a woman's voice on the other end. "Is this Marcus Thompson? This is Nurse Williams from St. Mary's Hospital." Here we go, I thought. The performance begins. "Yes, this is Marcus. Sir, I'm calling about your wife Jessica. She's been in a serious car accident." The actress was good, I had to admit. Her voice carried just the right mix of professionalism and barely contained emotion. Is she alive?" "Honey, Sir, I need you to come to the hospital immediately. Room 314 in the ICU. Please hurry. I hung up and immediately called my lawyer, my boss, and Jessica's parents, not to tell them about the fake accident, but to confirm they were all in position to witness what came next. Instead of rushing to the hospital in a panic, I drove home calmly and let myself into our house. I knew exactly where to find Jessica, in our guest bedroom, probably monitoring my reaction through the tracking app she'd secretly installed on my phone months ago. Sure enough, I found her sitting on the bed with her laptop open, watching my location dot on a map. She was so focused on the screen that she didn't hear me approach. Enjoying the show? I asked from the doorway. Jessica screamed, nearly launching the laptop across the room. Her face went through every emotion possible: shock, terror, confusion, and finally resignation. How did you? You sent your planning text to me instead of Amanda. Monday night at 11:47 p.m. She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The funeral plans were a nice touch, I continued, walking into the room. I found those too. You were going to let me plan your funeral, Jessica. You were going to watch me grieve for 3 days, then surprise me by coming back from the dead. Tears started flowing down her face. I can explain. Oh, I'm sure you can. Just like you explained the fake pregnancy test last month. Just like you explained the fake emergency with your mother that got me to cancel my business trip. Just like you've explained every manufactured crisis you've created to get attention. I sat down across from her, completely calm. But here's what you can't explain. Why you thought I'd want to stay married to someone capable of this level of cruelty. I wanted to know if you really loved me. By torturing me? By making me believe the person I love most in the world was dead. That's not a test of love, Jessica. That's sadism. My phone started ringing. Jessica's parents calling to check if I was okay since they'd heard about the accident. Should I answer? I asked, holding up the phone. Should I tell your parents about your little death hoax? I bet they'll be so proud. Please don't, Jessica begged. Please, I'll do anything. I'll never do anything like this again. You're right, you won't, because you won't have the opportunity. I answered the phone, putting it on speaker. Marcus, honey, we just heard about Jessica. How is she? Her mother's voice was filled with genuine concern. She's fine, Mom. In fact, she's right here. Would you like to tell them about your acting exercise, Jess? Jessica's face went white as her parents' voices came through the speaker, confused and demanding explanations. Over the next hour, as Jessica was forced to confess her plan to her horrified parents, my siblings, and our mutual friends, I watched her realize the true cost of her test. Nobody was impressed by her creativity. Nobody thought it was a harmless relationship experiment. Everyone was appalled by the cruelty and psychological manipulation involved. You made me take time off work to rush to the hospital, her father said, his voice shaking with anger. You had your mother crying hysterically in my car. For what? To see if your husband would be sad if you died? I just wanted to know. You wanted attention, her mother interrupted. Just like when you were 12 and faked being kidnapped so we'd appreciate you more? This wasn't the first time. Jessica had a history of manufacturing crises for attention that I'd never known about. When the family calls ended, Jessica sat on our couch, staring at her hands while I packed a suitcase. Where are you going? She asked quietly. Away from someone who thinks love means psychological torture. I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to know. You needed to know if I'd fall apart if you died. Well, congratulations. You got your answer. What answer? I stopped packing and looked at her directly. That I'm strong enough to survive losing someone who would do this to me. That I value myself enough not to stay with someone who sees our marriage as material for sick entertainment. And that I love myself too much to spend another day wondering what fresh hell you'll manufacture next. Jessica was crying harder now. But I love you. This was all because I love you so much that I needed to know you felt the same way. Love doesn't terrorize people, Jessica. Love doesn't require proof through suffering. Love doesn't manufacture crises to feel validated. I zipped up my suitcase and headed for the door. What you feel for me isn't love. It's possession. It's control. It's the need to manipulate someone into performing emotions for your entertainment. Where are you going? She asked desperately. To file for divorce. Then to therapy, to make sure I never again confuse manipulation with love or cruelty with affection. Please don't leave me. I'll change. I'll never do anything like this again. You're right, you won't, because I'm not giving you the chance. I opened the door, then turned back one final time. By the way, your actress friend called my phone 20 minutes ago asking for the rest of her payment. Apparently, you only paid her half up front. Might want to handle that before she posts about your scam on social media. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Jessica fought it at first, trying to claim I was abandoning her during a mental health crisis. But when the court saw the evidence of her elaborate deception, the hired actress, the fake medical records, the detailed planning documents, the judge wasn't sympathetic. Mrs. Thompson, the judge said during our final hearing, faking your own death to manipulate your spouse isn't a mental health crisis. It's calculated emotional abuse. Jessica was ordered to pay for my therapy costs and legal fees. She was also required to undergo mandatory psychological evaluation before being allowed to remarry. 6 months after our divorce, I ran into Amanda at a grocery store. She looked embarrassed but stopped to talk. "How is she doing?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Not well. She's been through 3 jobs since you left. Turns out when people hear about what she did, they don't want to work with someone capable of that level of deception. And the therapy. She goes, but she spends most sessions trying to convince the therapist that what she did was justified. She still doesn't understand why everyone thinks it was cruel." Amanda paused, then added quietly, "She asks about you sometimes, wants to know if you're dating anyone. What do you tell her?" "The truth, that you're engaged to someone who doesn't need to fake emergencies to feel loved." Pleasure. I was engaged. To my therapist colleague, actually. Someone who understood the difference between healthy communication and psychological manipulation. Someone who showed affection through kindness rather than crisis. Someone who never made me question whether her love was real or just another performance. The funny thing about Jessica's test is that it worked perfectly, just not the way she intended. It proved exactly how much I loved myself. Enough to walk away from someone who confused torture with romance. I learned that real love doesn't require proof through suffering. Real love doesn't need to create emergencies to feel important. Real love doesn't test, it trusts. Jessica spent 2 months planning the perfect test to prove my devotion. Instead, she proved that some people are too damaged to deserve the love they're testing for. The last I heard, she was still single, still creating drama with whatever poor soul was willing to date someone with a court-documented history of psychological manipulation. Sometimes I wonder if she learned anything from our marriage's spectacular implosion. But then I remember that learning requires accepting responsibility, and Jessica was always better at creating problems than solving them. Her test taught me something invaluable. When someone shows you they're capable of psychological cruelty, believe them. When someone thinks love requires proof through suffering, run. When someone mistakes manipulation for romance, save yourself the heartbreak and find someone who knows the difference. The best test of love isn't how much someone will endure for you. It's how much they'll protect you from having to endure anything unnecessary in the first place. If this story kept you reading, wait until you hear about the woman who hired actors to play her friends at her wedding because she'd driven away everyone who actually knew her. Hit that subscribe button because the most shocking betrayals are always the ones people justify as love. And trust me, after 7 years married to someone who confused psychological games with romance, I've learned to spot manipulation disguised as affection from a mile away. The next story will teach you exactly what to watch for.